Hello and welcome to Breast Friends Cancer Support Network. My name is Michelle Beck. I'm a two-time 9-year survivor of breast cancer. I'm the program's assistant at Breast Friends of Oregon. And when I have time, I write at a blog or on social media at I Never Liked Pink. So today, my guest is the co-founder of this amazing app called My CareCrew App. And her name is Paoola Sefair. And we're going to talk so much about this app today. It really helps alleviate the pain points of someone who is going through treatment and also with their caregivers to be able to reach out to all of those friends and family members who want to help, but they don't know what to do. So this app was developed by Paoola and a friend, and they really, I was playing with it last night. It's super cool. There's so many different things we're going to talk about. So Paoola, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Me too. So before we get into the cancer and the app, tell us about your life outside of those things.
Well, I am a mom of an 8-year-old, very, very active 8-year-old. I spend a lot of time focusing on social impact kind of enterprises and figuring out ways that I can contribute to other people's well-being. And so that's kind of how I ended up in this area and space. But my passion right now is my son and spending time with him and just enjoying and seeing life through his eyes, through an 8-year-old's eyes. It's been a learning experience. And other than that, I love traveling. We've been lucky before COVID. We now live in Europe, so we've been lucky to get to travel to a lot of places. So that's my second passion is traveling.
Very nice. And I feel you on the young preteen son. My son just turned 11 and he's still sweet and wonderful, but there's some days he is a preteen and I'm like, oh, please help me, Lord.
I'm getting glimpses of that already. So I have a sense of what you're talking about. I'm afraid when I see the full blown experience, what that's going to be like. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I have faith that we've been good parents and we will continue to support. And that's all we can do is be the best people that we can and try to raise good humans. So, well, let's get into why we're here today. And you, unfortunately, also went through a journey with cancer, not breast cancer, but something, pretty serious. So let's talk about that and how that leads us into our topic today. So tell me about your diagnosis and all of that good stuff. Not good stuff.
Not good stuff. Yeah, it was totally unexpected and it happened in the most trivial of ways. And this goes to say, you should never ignore that hunch that you get sometimes. So one day I happened to turn my head and I couldn't swallow. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. Why, And then I just kind of let it go for a few days. And then it kept coming back to me like, why couldn't I swallow? I mean, it didn't happen a lot of times. For some reason, that thought stayed in my mind. And I happen to have a doctor's appointment who happens to be a friend on New Year's Eve. And I said, this happened to me the other day. And for some reason, it stayed with me. And then so he's like, well, let's just check it out. Let's get you an ultrasound, go in and let's check it out. And so I did. A few days later, I went in for the ultrasound, not thinking anything of it.
Right. Because what is, you can't swallow mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I've got something wrong with my tongue or something like that.
Yeah. Like I never thought cancer. And so I was actually I took my son to Disney World. We were in Florida at the time. And then the next day I was supposed to come back so I could go get the test results. And I'm going in and I'm thinking nothing of it. I even bring my son with me because I thought it was going to be like a routine check. And at the time my son was, he was like 1.5. And I remember sitting in the doctor's chair and my son was on my lap.
In your lap, of course.
Yeah. My mom was kind of off to the side. I made it a family trip because again, I didn't think anything of it. And the doctor opens the door and he didn't even like say hello or nothing. He just opened the door and said, kiddo, sorry, it's cancer. And I'm like,
what the hell? Yeah.
I just like, at that point, like Charlie Brown, where you hear that wah, wah,
wah, wah, wah. Yes.
From that point on, those are the only 3 words that I remember clearly he said to me. And then after that, it's just a lot of wah, 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 wah. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what do you mean cancer and what stage and my son and am I going to see him grow up? And it was like this bizarre out of body experience that I went through. after the fact, and after I came back and kind of replay that experience, I was so angry with that doctor for how do you come in the door, see that I'm sitting there with my son and just blur out it's cancer. Like, how do you do that? Anywho, that's how I found out I had
Mm,
cancer. So it took me to go back again by myself to say, okay, I can need you to tell me again what you told me, but I need to now understand and
mhm.
kind of digest what you're saying. So that was my introduction to cancer.
And it was thyroid cancer, is that correct?
It was thyroid cancer. Yeah.
And what is the treatment for that?
There's various treatments depending on the kind of thyroid cancer. I didn't realize that there was different
Okay.
types of thyroid cancers. For the one I have, I had multiple surgeries, and then I had radiation therapy for it. And then now I just take like a medicine every day, which helps kind of make sure the cancer stays away.
Do you still have your thyroid
I
part of
don't
it?
know.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So yes. So you do, knowing my best friend had her thyroid removed years ago and has to take daily medication because it does
Yeah.
important stuff that regulates different things in your body.
A
So
lot of things that I didn't even, it almost
mhm.
regulates everything in your body from sleep to eating to your like heart. It impacts your heartbeat. I mean, it just has such profound effect on everything that you do, your adrenals. It's yeah.
But you made it through and it's been 6 years. Is that right?
That was in 2014.
Okay. So
And
almost
then
8 years. Yeah.
almost 8 years. It's been since I got my first NAD. Then I had to go back and get surgery again because then it regrew and then it spread.
Lovely.
Um, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's
The gift that
been
keeps on giving.
the gift that keeps on giving. It is. So then 2 years ago, it was the second time I got a NAD, like an official
Mm-hmm.
NAD. Um, and that was the year my best friend that also was going through cancer, was the co-founder of My CareCrew. She passed away like a month before.
Mm,
And I just didn't feel like I could enjoy my news. Like I just
right.
felt so like how could I celebrate knowing that my friend just passed away and her children won't have a mom. And so I had my scans a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is the first time that when the doctor told me your numbers are still, they started looking finally how we want them. They're going in the right direction. You can feel your net. I think it's the first time I could celebrate and said like, oh, I could breathe.
Yes. And I'm sure most of you out there know that, but for those of you who don't, and NED is no evidence of disease.
Yes.
And for a lot of cancers now, they don't really say in remission. They use no evidence of disease because that just seems to be a little more accurate because of potential recurrence and things like that.
Yeah.
So wonderful news on the scans. What was just the hardest part of hearing those 3 words that you have cancer?
I think because was a new mom at the time, it was just so just unraveling for me to think that I may not be here for my son. He
Yes.
may not, I may not see him go to college. I may not see him get married. And I think if I didn't have a son or a child at the time, as hard as cancer is, I think it would have been able to deal with it better. I think because I was a young mom at the time, it made it that much more stressful for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I 100% feel that. I was an old mom. I didn't have my son till 41, but I was, or 40, I guess. And I was diagnosed when he was 18 months. So I completely
It's
feel
about
that.
the
And I,
same.
I
Yeah.
have all those same fears. And even though I'm 5 years out from the end of my treatment and things are good, I still have that fear that
Yeah.
it's some part of it that never goes away. But so we're going to get to the app here in a second, but there is that fear and the anxiety, and the trauma, but did you have any good things that came out of your cancer journey?
I think, and it's kind of come out at the back end of it, right? Because you go into cancer and then you go into the survival mode. And at least for me and what I hear from other people that I talk to that have gone through this experience, it's like when you're in that treatment phase, and sometimes what's unfortunate is that treatment phase can last years, right? It's not like
Mm-hmm.
a 1 month, 2 month thing. It's like, okay, you have surgery, you have 4 months, 5 months to get better, then we can do the next thing, then oh, maybe it came back, and then you got to do the next. So it kind of draws out. So you're on that
Mm-hmm.
survival mode. I feel like I was in that space for about 3 or 4 years where I had anxiety. I was in what's that term they use? A high performing anxiety
Yes.
disorder. So I had that to begin with, right? So I already
Mhm.
had a baseline of anxiety that I dealt with, but I always managed it. It
Mhm.
wasn't an issue for me. But going into cancer and being in that survival mode for so long, at one point, I just kind of unraveled. And I remember my oncologist telling me, maybe it's time you talk to someone. At the time I was living in Vienna, which is like the home of psychiatry, right? And and
Not that we
I
want
said,
you to go talk to Freud.
no, but somebody who knows how to deal with these things. And I took upon and said, I should, because it got out of my hands. It got to the point where I could no longer manage the anxiety. It was managing me.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I lost train of thought for the question you originally asked me. I think that was the hardest part for me, was having to deal with and being in survival mode for so long, so that the gifts that I got out of cancer, I haven't experienced them except for the last couple years that I've had time to go through therapy,
Mhm.
to understand and work through the trauma of cancer. Um, and not just the trauma of cancer, but at least for me, cancer kind of unraveled all my previous traumas that I ignored for the first 45 years of my life.
Mhm.
And it just kind of just put it all out there. And it forced me in an unpleasant way to just work through it. Because either I was going to work through it and get out of that hole that I was in, or I was going to be a very unhappy person.
Mhm.
And I mean, I guess it was a big kick in the butt, but it has, now that I've kind of said I'm crawling my way up from that hole, I now can enjoy the benefits of, or I guess the gifts of going through that experience and coming out the other end.
Definitely. It makes you realize that what's really important in your life.
Mhm.
And you went back and you did the work to process past traumas and past things that weren't working in your life.
Mhm.
And I definitely have done the same myself. I wasn't diagnosed high functioning anxiety, but I definitely had anxiety. I was on medication. And as soon as I got my second cancer diagnosis, I just went in and like double that med, please, because
Oh,
there's
yeah.
only so much that I can handle.
Yeah.
And I also went to therapy and have spent a lot of time there processing my anger and my grief.
Mhm.
But it's for me, it turned me into not a better person, but a different person who appreciates life in a completely different way.
I agree. I agree with you totally. Yeah.
And so this journey and the journey of your best friend who has since passed brought you to develop the My CareCrew app. So tell us how your relationship started and where you went from there.
My relationship with my friend,
Yes.
we met back in early 2000. We both worked in technology at the time. I was in Silicon Valley in California, and we became friends from the get-go. She was very easy to connect with, and she was from Poland, and we had the opportunity to work together for over 10 years in similar teams. So we had a lot of joint projects. We traveled a lot together. We got to see each other's when we got married or when our kids were born. And so we had a really nice friendship over the years. And then through cancer, we kind of got she was diagnosed after I was diagnosed. And so I I think one of the things that brought us closer together is like she felt like maybe I could be that person she could talk to,
Mm-hmm.
that you could say anything because they'll understand because they've been through it. Um, so we just became really even closer during the years when we were both kind of going through it off and on. And one time when she got really sick and we thought, okay, this is now spreading all over her body and started to go to her brain. I thought that because I had gone through cancer that, or at least, well, I thought, and then my friends designated me as like, you're the person that is going to kind of help us coordinate all the help and what we do and what we say and what don't we say. And I realized through that experience that just because I had been through cancer, it didn't mean that I was the best qualified person to do all this coordination of how to best be there for Agnieszka, because we all go through cancer so differently. It's such a personal experience, I think, and we react differently. We want different things throughout the process. There's some people that, like myself, I kind of pulled away from the world and went through that alone, and some people like to surround themselves with people. And so that was what kind of led to the idea of, oh my gosh, this was really hard. It was hard going through it on my own. And then it was
Mhm.
hard trying to be there for my friend when and how she needed me most. And so I kind of started mapping out on a napkin, like, well, I wish I had this, and I wish I had that, and I wish I had that. And when she got a little better, I said, I don't know if I was a good friend to you when you were sick. I feel like I didn't do the right things. I feel like I didn't say the right things. And I told her about the idea, and she thought, that's a really good idea. I'm sure that other people would need something like that. And we started talking about two other people that we knew that had cancer, and we said, "What do you think about this?" And people really immediately started connecting with that concept of a way to make it easier to ask for help, and a way to
Mhm.
make it easier to accept help. So that's
Both
how
because
the
well, both of those things are incredibly hard, especially for you and myself too.
Mhm.
Very proud, hardworking women who can do everything.
Yes.
it's and even for those who aren't type A, it doesn't matter. It's still really hard to ask for help. And going through a cancer diagnosis, most oftentimes you really don't know exactly what you need. And so
Mhm.
how are other people supposed to help you with whatever it is that you need? So
Yeah.
coming up with this app was pure genius. And I'm sorry, say your friend's name again.
Agnieszka.
Agnieszka. So
Agnieszka.
how far along did you get in the process of developing the app before she passed?
She was well enough. I mean, even when she was on her way to her
Mm-hmm.
next journey, she we were talking about the branding, the name. We had already identified the features. And we had people when they heard about the idea, our ex-colleagues at Cisco, they're like, we're helping you. We'll what can we do? How can we contribute? So she fortunately had enough time where she knew we were doing this. Like our conversation became real.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the end, when she couldn't just participate anymore, I would leave her voicemails so her husband
Mm-hmm.
would play them for her or send her messages or send her little videos. And she said, she can't see what you're doing, but I can. And she couldn't talk at that time anymore. And she said she has a smile on her face.
Mm-hmm.
So something must be getting through. And I mean, to me, that was just the most amazing experience, right? Like if that's all I accomplished with this, that I could bring a smile to her face in her last few days, then
Mm-hmm.
that's hard. Sorry, I get
Oh, so
emotional because then that was
everything
worth it.
100% worth it. And what you have developed after, yes, you worked on the ideas together, but what you created after she passed is really a love letter to her and
Yeah.
your friendship and your relationship. And that is what really gets, yes, there's drugs and there's treatment and this and that, but having the support of someone who gets it and who
Mhm.
you can empathize with them and have that compassion for them. It is so, so important in the healing process and in treatment. So we are going to take a quick break, but after break, we're going to break down the features and the app and all of the amazing things that it does. So listeners, please stay with us. If you would like to support Breast Friends, you can make a donation on our website or by texting BF Radio to 41444, or please go to our website and under patient programs, see what Breast Friends can do for you. Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Michelle Beck, and my guest is Paoola Sefair, co-founder of My CareCrew App. And we are going to dig into the app now that we've been talking about. So Paoola, tell us the mission behind the app. What do you really feel like it's for?
Our original mission, and it still stands today, is we just want to make this journey a little bit easier for other patients and other caregivers. And if that's all we accomplish, that for one person we made it a little easier, that's really all we hope to achieve.
That is beautiful. So, and is it just patients or who can use the app? Who will it really benefit?
We started from a place of cancer because that's where my experience is. That's where I feel I have permission to speak from. But it's an app that can help anybody. The most consistent feedback we get when we've been doing demos is, well, why are you reserving it only for cancer patients and
Mm.
caregivers? I mean, I'm going through a divorce. I could use this. Somebody else said my parent just died. I could have used this to coordinate. And so, I mean, anybody who's going through a life changing experience can use it. and we're not limiting the access to the free app to anybody. We've just started from a place of this is really helpful for cancer patients
Mhm.
and caregivers, because that's our experience.
But it really can help anyone who has gone
It
through a
can.
trauma. So let's talk about the features. I was downloading it and looking at all the different things. So tell us what is actually in the app.
In the app. Okay, so the first feature is one of the things that we wanted to do for patients is give them back a little bit of the control over the things that they can't control. Because in this cancer experience, I felt, and Agnieszka, we both felt like so much was out of our control.
Yep.
And at least one thing we could control is who is around us that we want in that inner circle as we're going through this process. So the first feature in the app is the ability to invite the people you want to your private community. This is not a Facebook. It's not like everybody will have access to what you're saying. It's the people that you invite to your community. We call them a care crew.
Mhm.
And then those people you invite, they get an email invitation, and then they get connected to your care crew. And once they're in your care crew in the app, as a patient, you can ask for help. So you can say, I'm requesting, and then you can say, I need meal transportations to the hospital, childcare, all the different tasks, daily tasks that you may need to get help with. And you can put a lot of all the details you need, like the date, the time, specific instructions. And then those help requests are received by the people you select from your care crew. And then those people get a notification saying, oh, Paula's asking for this, Paula's asking for that. And then they can quickly say, yeah, I can do this. No, I can't do this. So that's one feature. The other feature, and it's what makes this app different from any other app we've seen in the market so far, is it allows the friends to offer help. So one of the things that Agnieszka used to say, I hate the question, how can I help you? I hate that
Mhm.
question because I don't have an answer. I
Right.
am so overwhelmed. I don't know how you can help me. And so with that, well, if the friend, if the person, the patient can ask for very specific help, what if the friend could offer very specific help and say, you know what, Michelle, I don't know what help you need, but this is what I can do. I can babysit on these days. I can cook meals on these days. I can drive you on these days. And then the patient can say, that's good. That's good. That's not good. That's good. And that way it makes it easy. It's not like the onus on the patient to figure out what are all the things you need. It kind of
Mhm.
balances that need for asking for help.
And it's
Yeah.
genius because so many times when you're going through treatment, you're exhausted, your sleep schedule's
Mhm.
completely off, and sometimes you just don't feel like talking to people.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like I just wanted to lay in bed and to do nothing, or I didn't want to talk about what I was going through 50 times.
Yeah.
And that is exhausting. And in the app, there's a section called On My Mind, which
Yes.
is where you can do status updates. And there's also a
Mhm.
journal and a wellness tracker where you can track your mood. And I love
Mhm.
that. That's so cute. Like you get little, yeah, you can click on it and there's little symbols that you can put on there. I'm currently reading my app here.
Oh, okay.
Hopeful, happy, determined, relieved, grateful, confused, isolated, afraid, and sad. And you can put symptoms on there and you can select the people that you kind of want this to go out to
Mhm.
because yes, you might want to invite 40 of your best friends, but really only 4 of them are the ones who are like, oh God, I really want them to know about this.
Yes.
And it's pure genius. And there's also a wish list if things
Mhm.
that you need for how did you come up with the different features?
So the all of those are just pain points that we all experienced, meaning Agnieszka and I, and then we validate it with other patients. So the asking for help was a no-brainer. The offering help, where the care crew or a friend or family can offer help, that also came from our own experience, and then we heard it a lot from other patients. The wellness tracker, where you could track your symptoms and your mood, that actually happened. That actually came from me because the medicine I was taking earlier in my treatment was impacting my mood. And
Mm.
so the doctor had me track, let me know when you feel certain things. And so we can see which medication or what's making you feel that way. Um, the wish list came about because myself and other patients say, I got all these gifts that either I couldn't enjoy or I couldn't eat, or they were just not something I needed at the time. And we said, well, what if we could, like there's a wedding registry where you get to put what you wish
Yeah.
for. Like, what if there's a cancer registry where you could create what you wish for? And that wish for, what became interesting was, it's not always just a gift. It could be an experience. It could be, I just want to go for a walk, but I don't want to go by myself, or I would want to go for tea, or it could be an item that I need. Like my friend whose son was going through cancer, she said, I needed a walker, but it was so expensive to go. What if somebody in my network had a walker that I could borrow? So that wish list could be anything. It could be a gift. It could be an experience. It could be a product that you need for a little bit. Maybe one of your friends has it. And that's how the idea of the wish list came about.
I love that, because and as you go through it, you do figure out things more that you need and that you want. But you don't really want to go, oh, hey, can someone buy me this? Or can someone come do this? And this is kind of a way of just sliding that request in there without feeling funny about it, because the people who you've invited. So the patient or the caregiver can go to the Apple App Store, the Android App Store, basically wherever you find your apps. Oh, see, there's my phone ringing, and it's not supposed to do that. So bear with me 1 second. This is what happens when you have a phone in your room. Okay, sorry about that. We are back. So download the app on any of the stores, and then you register with basic information, and then you get to invite people. And so that is when you can say, okay, these are the people that I want to invite to be in my circle, to be my care crew. And then you can just start from there. And I'm assuming that the invitees they also will need to accept and download the app, which is no big deal. We do that every day. And then they're in that community.
It's that straightforward. Yeah.
Perfect. Love
that easy.
Ooh, sorry. My phone ringing totally threw me off. Now you recently.
I'm glad it was your phone and not my phone.
So this is new. You just launched this recently, correct?
Yeah, just about a month ago, we launched it into the app stores. Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love being part of the launch. So listeners out there, please definitely, when we're done with the episode, go and download this app and share it with friends and family. Even if you're not going through treatment, this is something that you could share with others, because over the course of time, you're going to find more and more people who get diagnosed with cancer, or who go through a trauma, or who just need help from something like this. So it is fabulous. Let's kind of talk about, so now we talked briefly about it, but now that you are a survivor, how do you view life differently or live differently?
I think now that and a lot of this comes from that working through the trauma and getting professional help, which I highly advocate for all patients. I have a sense of clarity about what's important in life. What are the big rocks in my life? And I'm much more intentional, and dare I say selfish, about where I spend my energy and my time. Like, I no longer feel bad saying no to things. Okay, sometimes I feel bad, but I'm more comfortable saying no to things, because then that would mean it takes energy away from either my family or the work that I'm doing. So I've just become a lot more intentional about what I want, and then how I use my energy and my time.
Yes, yeah. I completely understand that. I learned to develop boundaries, because I'm a caregiver. I'm the Enneagram, I think 2, which is the helper. And like that is what I do. I take care of others to the detriment of myself usually. And it really showed me that, yes, it is okay to have boundaries, and it is okay. No is a complete sentence.
I love that. No is the complete sentence.
Yes,
yeah, I'm going to use that.
Please do. It came down from the founder of Breast Friends, Sharon Hennepin, who taught it to my mentor, Yvonne Neidigger, who is my silver lining from my cancer. And she's been working on that with me for the past 2 years. And I'm finally learning to say no.
No. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to use that. No is the complete sentence. Yeah.
It truly is genius.
Yeah. I found that the other, and again, being a doer, I used to be a do productivity focused. I feel that I've been able to shift from, not perfectly, but I'm a work in progress, from doing to being, and learning what that means. And that, I think, has been the biggest, most profound impact of cancer on my life is it's learning to just be
Mhm.
and learning and understand and appreciate what that means.
Yes, I completely understand that. It just changes your viewpoint and your focus.
Mhm.
So if you had a friend who was diagnosed today, what three things would you tell them on how to move forward, or what helped you?
I think the first thing I would say is get professional help from the beginning. I know I've repeated that over and over again, but I cannot underestimate the importance of having not just your family and your friends, but having a professional psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, whatever you feel comfortable with, a coach, somebody that knows how to manage these traumatic experiences and they can walk you through it. Like, don't try to do this alone. I wish somebody had told me that when I started my process and not like 3 or 4 years into it. I think it would have
Mhm.
been a much different experience for me. It would have been a much more humane experience for me having that person help me through all the emotions. That would be my number one thing. My number two thing would be your own advocate.
Mhm.
Doctors are experts, they know their thing, but you know you. And if something doesn't feel right, something doesn't sound right, something just, even if you just need to talk it through 3 more times, be your own advocate, talk it through 3 more times. This is
Mhm.
your life. And in the beginning of the process, I feel like I was such a wimp and I was like, okay, whatever they told me, I would just take it and accept it and do it.
Well, they're
And then,
they're the experts, and we're taught as we
yeah,
grow that we trust our doctors, and it's not that we shouldn't trust our doctors, but if something, it's called the good patient syndrome, that you go in and you don't want to disappoint your doctor,
hmm,
and so you're just like, okay, yes, thank you.
yeah,
And it's not like we should, argue with them over things that they're telling us or ways for treatment, but you really should understand. And if you don't,
yes,
like you said, ask and ask again, or get a
yes,
second opinion, because no one
yes.
else is going to do that for us.
No. And when something doesn't feel right, say it, voice it. I had a doctor at one point who, right after my thyroid this diagnosis, like a month after that, they discovered tumors in my ovaries and my uterus. And so I was working between the two doctors trying to figure out, well, what do we treat first, the thyroid or do we treat the ovary?
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember the ovary doctor, or whatever you call his profession. I don't like, and is that not an endocrinologist, but whatever the ovary doctor is.
A gynecologist.
Okay, a
Yeah, I think,
gynecologist.
yes,
That
I think
sounds right.
the woman who did my hysterectomy was a oncological gynecologist.
There you go.
That's a
That
phrase.
gentleman, I'll never forget. That is a phrase. He sat there across this table and said to me, "Well, you only have a 10% chance of that being a cancer. Now, are you going to take all your organs out of your body because there's a 10% chance of having cancer?" And
Yes.
for a minute, I just sat there, and my normal self would not say anything. I would just be like, "Okay, let's just work through this." Then I was like, "You know what? No." I said, "That thyroid cancer, I had a less than 1% chance of that being cancer. You're telling me this is 10%. And this ovarian cancer, I understand, is much more aggressive." So I just remember that to me was the point where it kind of triggers something in my mind that's like, I gotta fight for me because nobody else is going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
so
10% is pretty high when you think about
that's
it.
pretty high. Yeah. It's like, yeah, if it's gonna take 10%, yeah, take it out of my body. I don't need that ovary. I have my child. So yeah,
Yeah, I
be
definitely.
your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Push back if you need to, ask questions if you need to, and be okay with that. Don't just sit back and go with everything that you're told.
Yes, 100%. So you mentioned your son and that he was very young and grew as you were going through these various things. What was your biggest parenting challenge during your diagnosis and
Mm.
treatment?
Just the physical fatigue was my number one. I was so exhausted all the time that I just sitting and playing with him for more than 20, 30 minutes. I was just, go take a nap. So that I feel like I don't, I mean, he probably doesn't even remember any of this because he was so young, but I feel like I wasn't the best parent I could have been in that space of time. And then more beyond the physical aspect of it was making sure that my mindset and my anxiety and what I was going through wasn't spilling onto him. That was, I think, my mentally my biggest challenge to work through. I'm
I
sure
don't
some of it did, but
Yes, I don't know that I actually succeeded at that because I definitely experienced a lot of those same things. My son is great, but he definitely does have anxiety that we're
so
working
does
through.
mine. Yeah,
And
same
he
thing.
actually he's been going through some challenges lately. And he actually asked, he has a counselor that he sees and he hasn't seen her in 2 years. And he goes, "Can we go back and see our doctor?" I'm like, "Yes, thank
Yes.
you." I love that I've started my son on that path that he's okay to ask for that.
Yes, I'm with you. I could see traces of that anxiety in my son. He's only 8 now, but
Mhm.
and I think COVID may have had something to
Oh,
do with it.
100%.
And it just kind of grew from there. And I know I think my husband thought I was a little bit off when I said I want him to talk to somebody. There's
Mhm.
no reason why we need to suffer through anxiety. There's tools,
Yep.
there's treatments, there's therapies, and if you can teach those to a child and have him grow with that insight and that knowledge, why not?
Yeah,
So
100%. I think everyone should go to therapy.
yes.
One, everyone should go. Everyone's got things they need to work through with someone else who is not
Mm,
in your house or your immediate friend circle. Um,
yeah.
if you move back to the States while your son is still of a younger age, there's an amazing organization here called Camp Kesem. And I
Okay.
can't talk about this place enough. They do free week-long summer camps for kids whose families have been affected by cancer.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're staffed by college students. It started at Stanford, gosh, I think 12 years ago. And now there's chapters literally all over the country. And my son goes every week, every summer for a week. And it's like old-fashioned summer camp. It's amazing. So listeners, check out Camp Kesem. So we are going to take another quick break, but please stay with us. If you would like to be a guest on the show or send me your warrior story, you can email me at michellebeck@breastfriends.org. Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. I'm Michelle Beck, and my guest is Paoola Sefair, and we are talking about Paula's cancer journey and how it developed into this amazing app called My CareCrew, which you can download wherever you get your apps. And Paula, I kind of want to jump back to the app for a minute because I forgot to talk about one of the things that you also have an online shop that
Mhm.
has useful merchandise in it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So one of the things that we wanted to do to make the wish list aspect easier and to make it just easier for cancer patients to find the things that they would need during their treatment was to create an online store where we curate things that will help you with post-surgery treatment, wear, with treatment side effects. So whether you're having chemo or radiation and all the side effects that go along with it, we curate the products that you could use if you wanted to. Things with mindfulness, so products, tools, books, journals, anything that's related to mindfulness and cancer. Gifts for kids, teens, caregivers, patients. And then the other thing that we started to do as we've gone through the process of cancer is that you become much more aware of the ingredients that are in products. So we've started to add a section around clean beauty, and then we want to add a section around cleaning products for the house so that it just kind of evolves into this what you need during your process for treatment and during treatment and post treatment. And then once you're out of that phase and you start to be more holistic and more intentional about what you put in your body, on your body, and in your environment, that we have the products that we would curate it for those different phases of the cancer journey. And then all of that can be easily connected. If one click, you can connect the products from the store into the wish list in the app.
That is genius. And one thing I really like, actually, when I was scrolling through the app earlier today, I saw that there's a little quote in the corner, like never give up. You can actually
Mm,
put inspirational quotes on
yes.
there and
Yes.
just, and it doesn't, and like you had mentioned earlier, this doesn't have to be just for patients doing this. A caregiver or a best friend can really do this for a patient if the patient is not up for it, so
Mhm.
they can have that one person. So it can work in all of those different ways. So I love that. Um, so where are you now? We've talked briefly a little bit about it, but in your NED, but so you're past your cancer, but is it ever really a part of your past?
For me, it hasn't been so far. I feel like I was sharing that I had my scans like 2 weeks ago. It's amazing how just like the littlest of things trigger you. So I got scans normal procedure. I had my ultrasound, and in this particular appointment, for some reason, it took twice as long.
Mm.
And for some reason, she started to go not just the normal areas that I know they do, but then she started in the back of my neck. She went up into my head, and the brain and the lungs tend to be a place where my kind of cancer goes to. And that immediately triggered me. It was like, oh my God, she's going into my head. And instead of taking like 30 minutes like they normally do, it was like a 50-minute session. And I'm like, okay. And I asked her, I'm like, are you seeing something? Why are you taking so many pictures? And of course they can't tell you, but I
Right.
thought I'd still ask anyway. And so it was crazy how like that one incident, it just completely triggered me. So that whole week, I normally get scan study, but that week I really was going through a high level of anxiety. I didn't talk to my husband about it or anybody. I just felt like I needed to kind of go through it myself. And I remember going into my doctor appointments, and she came in and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, you tell me what's wrong.
Like,
What's
I'm
going
dying.
on?
What's
Yeah, like
wrong?
tell me." She
Why
goes,
were they doing that?
she
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Let me start with your numbers are good. They're going in the right direction." I said, "Okay, now we can talk because I have been dying for a week." So
Mm-hmm.
cancer is one of those things that even though you may get a NAD, it doesn't end there, because that's sometimes when you start the emotional dealing of cancer. So I wish people would prepare you for that. I wish doctors would prepare you for that. NAD is just part of the journey. You're still going to have to go through this other emotional process that you need to go through.
Oh, 100%. Because when doctors are there for your treatment, they're removing the cancer from your body or helping manage it as best as possible. And then they're like, okay, you can go now. And we're like, where am I
Yeah.
supposed to go? You
Yeah.
go from this having multiple appointments every week to be like, okay, you're good. We'll see you in 6 months or even, God forbid, a year. My oncologist just tried to put me on the year plan. I was like, nope, I will see you in 6 months, because that's just where I'm at. And I had a very similar experience with an ultrasound last year. I was just having some pain. So they were doing an ultrasound, and unbeknownst to me, I had essentially a technician in training. And so the amount of pictures that she was taking, I literally was laying on the table, just tears rolling down my face, because I was positive that there was something there that I was
Something
going to
in
have to
there.
deal with. And then she's like, okay, I'll be back. I have to go get my supervisor. And I'm like, oh my God, it must be something giant they have to look at. And she came back, and then they finally told me that she was in training. So she was just doing, I'm like, what? You could have told me that
You could
earlier.
have told me. It's funny how, it's the little things that you would think hospitals going through this day in and day out, as well as they do their job. Because I am very happy with my cancer center in
Sure.
Florida. It's just those little things that sometimes trigger you and send you spinning off into all these what ifs, and what if it's that, and what if it's this, and
How do you cope with that fear of the what ifs? Do you try to tamp it down, or do you process through it?
The old me would have just gotten so busy with work and that I would just push stuff aside. The new me, I'm very much into meditation these days. So I spend at least 45 minutes every morning just sitting there with my emotions, my feelings, and trying to meditate through them. And I just try to work through them now. I don't try to push them away. I don't always successfully do it, but that focus has shifted to sit there and let it fester, feel those ugly emotions, because unless you do, they're going to be there at some level in your body.
They're going to
I
be there and
think.
give you ulcers and headaches and tension, aches in your body. So the working through it is important. I definitely have also found that finding a daily mantra to really help you get through the day. I found one in a book from one of my guests a while ago. Her name is Dr. Michelle Cambolis, and it was, I'm grateful for this breath, I'm grateful for this body, and I'm grateful for this life. And just if you sit and think about it, I'm very grateful just to be here and look at how fortunate I am that I am no evidence of disease after going through it twice. And it really puts things in a whole different perspective.
Yeah, I think that would be the other takeaway. For you had asked me what would I recommend to somebody who's just starting this process, and in addition to like getting therapy and being your own advocate, was be that focus on your mindset, and focus on learning the tools that are available out there to manage your mindset. I think that plays such a big role. And I wish I had known that in the beginning, managing
Definitely.
your brain.
But we're not prepared because we
No.
always think, oh, I'm not going to get cancer. It's not going to happen to me. So it's just not something we're like, okay, let's prepare for this mental work. And yes, it's good to prepare for the mental work for other things that are going through,
Mhm.
because we all have trauma. I mean, we've all been through trauma the past 2 years
Yes.
in terms of pandemic. And it's just figuring out how to move forward, and no matter what the situation is super important. So let's jump back to the app and what you're doing with My CareCrew. What is the most challenging part of putting this all together?
Of putting it together, I think the just the app technology side of it, like working with the developers and trying to create a product that will add value,
Mhm.
and that it's really designed to address the critical pain points that a cancer patient experiences or a caregiver experiences. And so I've spent a lot of time, months, actually more than a year and a half, just researching and talking to people. And does this work? Is this what you would need? Is this what you want? So I think was the most, from a just a physical standpoint, that was the most challenging part of putting My CareCrew together. And from an emotional standpoint, we were talking about this during the pre-session, was you meet so many people in this space, and unfortunately, not all those people are always with us. So every time that I learn that one of those people in our community have passed away, or I no longer
Mhm.
hear from them, I always get that, "Oh, somebody else gained the angel wings." And that part, you think it get easier with time, but it doesn't. Every person has that same level of that reaction that you have inside of you of, "Oh my God, they're no
Mhm.
longer here. Oh my God, their family is missing them." Or so that part, I don't know. I have to figure out how to deal with that. I don't think I figured it out, because it just hits me every time I learn of somebody who's gained the angel wings.
We've actually lost a lot of women over the past 2 years, and many of them young, at Breast Friends. We actually had a end of life counselor come in and speak with
Mhm.
us. She actually works with patients who are at the end of life. Her name is Kelly Grossclags, and she's amazing. On Facebook, you can find her at Conversations with Kelly. But she really came in and gave us some counseling on how to deal with the loss, because what we do, it's a service from the heart. Like, we want to help
Mhm.
others, but that is part of it, because you can't stop the loss and the heartbreak, which is super, it it's a heavy emotions to bear,
Yeah.
even though we know we're doing good. So that brings me to my next question. What is the most rewarding part of what you're doing?
The most rewarding part, I think it has been hearing from well, the most rewarding part in the beginning was knowing that in those last days that Agnieszka had, that the
Mhm.
progress we were making and that the voice messages that I was leaving, that was putting a smile on her face when she was, um,
Mhm.
not doing well. So that was, like, my husband kept telling me, and that's what kept me going for as long as, if that's all you accomplished, you've been successful. You've accomplished your goal. And I said, absolutely. And then seeing some of that in other people, strangers that have started to use the app, and then I get comments of, thank you for putting this together, or this
Mhm.
helped me do that, or this helped me, just hearing that feedback that it made their life a little easier. It's like, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep trying. Let's keeps me motivated to know that it's helping people.
Now, I know we had talked previously that you had developers who helped you develop this on their own time, essentially,
Mhm.
for um, and I know they were volunteering in the beginning.
Mhm.
Is the back end of this pretty much made by volunteers?
No, no, we have an actual developer. We've
Okay.
paid for the
Hmm.
app, so that's done by a company.
Hmm.
The volunteers were more ex-colleagues who thought this was a great idea and that they wanted to spend their time with. So, for instance, one of them was an engineer
Hmm.
from a technology company. Somebody else was a marketer. Somebody else. We had an agency, MRM, out of California, who, when they heard about the project, they offered to do the design of the app. So
Hmm.
the colors, the
Yep.
branding, the all those, the beautiful part of the app and how it functioned, the flows, they did that pro bono. So I want to give
Nice.
kudos to, yes, they spent, I think, close to a year working with us, making sure that the app was something that would be easy to use and nice, visually pleasing to see. And so that part was pro bono, but the actual coding and the
Mm-hmm.
architecture and all that, we're working with Amazon as our back end architecture, and then
Mm-hmm.
working with the developer, a company who's creating and doing all the code.
And most of this was out of your own pocket, correct?
So far, yes. Yeah. This
Are there
was
ways that people can donate or to the My Care Crew or
right now what we're just asking is for people to use our online store, because the sales that we generate through the online store is going back into either the app or into, hopefully in the future, new products that we can come up with to help more cancer patients and caregivers. So the focus would be if people come to our website and then they
Mhm.
buy products through our website.
Perfect. They're like affiliate programs where you get
Yes.
cash back from that.
Yes.
Do you have thoughts and plans on how to add to the app or other products that you want to do in the future?
We do. We have a roadmap of ideas of things that we want to add. We want to focus on looking and leveraging technology in a way that will help us as individuals kind of get better at determining, oh, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling lonely, or I'm getting depressed. The kinds of activities, if you use AI, there's some companies that have started to experiment on helping people auto diagnose, you should go for a walk now. Or normally you feel really happy when you do this. So kind of help you trigger ideas of things that you should be doing so that you can feel better on your own, without having to like go and visit a doctor or whatnot. So we want to experiment with AI and other technology available to help people gain control back of, okay, I'm feeling this. What can I do to make it better?
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. So literally we have about a minute left. So tell us where people can tell us all the things, the website, the app, the social media.
So for the website, you can find us at mycarecrew.co. It doesn't have an M at the end. It's just co.
Mhm.
To find me, the easiest place would probably be LinkedIn. So Paoola Sefair in LinkedIn. I have my email and all my contact details there. And all our social medias are on our website. So that's probably the easiest place to find us is the website.
Perfect. So listeners, I cannot recommend this app enough. I wish I had this when I was going through, because setting up the meals and the writing and the different places, I was sending people to all these different places, and now you can do everything in one place at the My CareCrew app. So Paoola, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
It has been quite a pleasure. So listeners, please go to the website and download mycarecrew.co. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
mycarecrew.co. And then you can download in the App Store. Sorry.
Or
That's
you can download it from the website. We've linked them from the website
nice.
too.
That is cancer brain at its best right there. Squirrel, not knowing what I'm going to say next. It's the joy of what we're doing here. So listeners, if you need breast friends, please go to our website, breastfriends.org, and see what we can do for you. You can make a donation there or by texting BF radio to 41444 to ensure that no one goes through cancer alone. And you can find our show, old episodes, on all of your podcast platforms and also on the Voice America Health and Wellness channel. If you would like to sponsor an episode, be a guest, or send me your story, I can be reached at Michelle Beck at breastfriends.org. We'll be back next week. And until then, remember, we rise by lifting each other.